Buckle up, everyone. I have some more publishing industry drama that we need to talk about today. And it surrounds something that is so important, which is protecting yourself as an author when you are working with a literary agent. So this past week, the publishing industry blew up with the news of a high-profile literary agency dropping a group of authors all at once via email. Now, this pretty much sounds like every author's worst nightmare come to life. You've done all of this work to finally secure a literary agent, and now you're working with them to get your book published. You thought you had this person to be your support and your partner in publishing, and all of a sudden, now you are left without representation and wondering if your book is even going to get published. So if you haven't heard the story about this literary agency, don't worry, I'm going to give you the full rundown. And if you have, I'm going to provide my commentary and insights on what I think authors can take away from this news. I want to speak a little bit specifically to authors who are hoping to get traditionally published and what this might mean for them, because I understand that this type of news might make you feel like your trust in the industry is eroded, and I totally understand why. So let's talk about what we can learn from this incident and how you as an author can protect yourself going forward. If you are an aspiring author or you're at all interested in the book publishing industry, I recommend subscribing to my channel. Every week, I either talk about the industry, particularly from the perspective of Big 5 publishing houses, since that is my professional background, or I give tactical tips on how to improve your manuscript. I also have a free resource in the description for anyone who has a work in progress. If you're in the position of having a draft, but not quite knowing what is working well in it or what could be improved, you can't really see the forest from the trees, I recommend downloading my free story self-assessment worksheet. It's a fun, simple quiz designed to help you see your story in a new light and hopefully illuminate some areas that you could improve on the next draft. Downloading that is going to sign you up for my newsletter, where I publish exclusive interviews with publishing insiders and traditionally published authors, so you don't want to miss out on the amazing tips they are giving. If you want to go straight to the newsletter, I also have that link in the description. So what the heck happened this past week with this literary agency suddenly dropping several of its authors? The agency in question is called New Leaf Literary and Media, and this group of authors were emailed and told that they would no longer be receiving representation from the agency because the agent that they had signed with and the agency were parting ways. Now, in the statement that New Leaf sent to these authors, they described it as an amicable parting ways, but the agent in question posted her own statement on Twitter and said that it was not something she would describe as amicable, and she said it was not her choice to leave the agency, and she seemed overall very upset that everything had happened in this way and that her authors were now basically being left in the dust. So some of her clients were offered continued representation via other agents at the agency. Others were told that they would be represented through their current contract negotiations if they had a book deal in the works. And then others were just dropped entirely and told that they did not have a future with that agency. Rightfully so, many of the affected authors took to Twitter to air their frustrations with this situation. And it began a much larger discussion about what healthy author and agent relationships should look like and how authors should be treated in these tricky situations. By and large, it was agreed among the industry that the way this transition was handled was very poor, so it sparked a lot of very important discussions about what agents and agencies and authors should be doing in this type of scenario. Authors who were with New Leaf and were dropped, or authors who had been with New Leaf agents in the past, also took it as an opportunity to discuss some other concerns that they had about working with their agent or their agency. For instance, certain authors said that they felt that the agency was prioritizing established authors who already had several books under their belt or who already had book deals versus debut authors who were just trying to get their feet off the ground. Authors also shared stories about not feeling like they got the support that they needed from their agent, or that their work was just not really given priority or given a lot of attention. So after all of this went down, the Authors Guild released a statement online saying that they did not condone what New Leaf did and how they handled the situation, and that they were looking to the agency to address it and mend the situation with the authors in question. So apparently the Authors Guild did have a conversation with New Leaf leadership, and they committed to doing certain things. So I'm gonna read the statement now. Specifically, New Leaf has committed to do the following for authors: 1, whose books are out on submission; 2, who are currently negotiating principal deal terms; and 3, who have finalized principal terms but not yet negotiated contracts. Books on submission. The author can choose to have New Leaf pull the project from submission or to continue with the submission process, with New Leaf managing it until a new agent steps in. Deals under negotiations. The author may choose to have New Leaf continue representation through another New Leaf agent, or to take over negotiations themselves or through a lawyer or new agent. Authors who go this route should join the Guild, if not already a member, and submit a legal request for review of the term sheet and eventually of the contract. Closed deals pending contracts. New Leaf will either negotiate and administer the contract, hand it over to a new agent, or if the author prefers, let the author take over negotiation. Again, if an author wishes to take over negotiations themselves, New Leaf recommends that they join the Authors Guild and submit their contract to our legal team for review to ensure that they are protected. While it's good that there was an agreement of some kind made and that New Leaf did put in place an action plan for what to do in all of these scenarios, for me at least, the big gap in these commitments is, what about authors who are in the process of getting their books ready for submission, but they haven't actually gone on submission yet, which is the case of a lot of authors who get representation, particularly if they had just signed on with an agent. Typically it takes a few months at least for you to go on submission, and that's the period where you're working on your manuscript with your agent. Authors who are in that situation are pretty much wholly neglected from this conversation and this commitment. It seems to be that many of the authors who were dropped from the agency altogether were in that position, and now they basically have to go back into the querying trenches and find a brand new agent. So now that we know what happened and we have this update from the Authors Guild, let's talk about some takeaways from this situation for authors. First and foremost, before you sign an offer of representation with a literary agent, make sure there is a contingency plan in your contract with them that explicitly spells out what is going to happen if they decide to leave the agency, if they decide to leave agenting altogether, or if the agency dissolves. Where does that leave you? And go a step further and ask them where that leaves you based on the different period you might be in along your publishing journey. If you haven't gone on submission yet, what will you do? What if you're in the middle of going on submission? What's gonna happen? What if you have a book deal that's in negotiation? Then what happens? Who takes over those negotiations? Have these conversations before you sign the offer of representation. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's going to save you so much headache down the line if something happens, and it's going to protect you. Now, the agent you are potentially signing with might give you the answer that you would be taken on by a different agent at their agency if they choose to leave the agency or if they leave agenting altogether. Now, I just want you to be aware that this situation could work out great. You still have representation, you're still at the same agency, right? But I also want you to feel empowered to speak up if you don't feel that that agent is the right fit for you. Because after all, they're not the one who signed you on, right? They're not the one who expressed that passion for your work, and that really is what you're looking for in an agent. So if that is the solution that your proposed agent is giving you, ask them, hey, what happens if I don't want to be with that agent? Can I then go query again? That would give you the most protection, because it is not forcing you to be with an agent who frankly didn't choose you and who you didn't choose, right? That brings me to my next takeaway, which is that it is so critical for you to ensure that you and your agent are a good fit as best as you can, right? Of course, you aren't going to be able to anticipate every scenario. Certainly the authors who signed with this agent did not anticipate this scenario at all. But do as much as you can to make sure that this feels like a good partnership. This feels like someone who's going to support you through your writing career. A good step you could take is speaking to other authors who were represented by that agent. How was their experience going on submission, for instance? Did they have any concerns or any rough patches with their agent throughout the book deal process? Remember that just because an agent or an agency represents big name, best-selling authors does not necessarily mean that you're going to get the support you need from that agent. So I do recommend trying to reach out to those authors, and if they love their agent, they should be willing to tell you that, right? And that will give you a lot of peace of mind. I also want every author who's watching this to know their worth. Remember that you do not work for the agent. In fact, the agent needs you. It doesn't feel like the author is the one in power in traditional publishing. It just doesn't, because there are all these gatekeepers, there's all this hierarchy, there's all these hoops you have to jump through to get your book through the door. But remember that you actually are the one in power at the end of the day. You're the one with the story. Without those stories, the publishing industry can't run. So I hope that gives you some confidence to speak up when things feel dicey or aren't really going the way that you thought. If something doesn't feel right with your agent or agency or your book deal process, don't feel like you just have to grin and bear it because you're lucky to be traditionally published. No, speak up, speak to other authors, reach out to the Authors Guild, or there's also a great blog called Writer Beware, who keeps a list of agencies and publishers who are known for more shady situations. Reach out to these people. You have a support network and you do not have to just sit there and take it. My last point here is that if you do have an agent currently, I recommend taking this as an opportunity to have a frank, honest conversation with them about a transition plan if you haven't had that conversation and it is not in your contract already. Since every agent in the industry is aware of this new leaf situation, this is a great time and opportunity for you to bring up some sensitive topics that might have felt awkward to bring up in any other time. Again, your agent is supposed to be your partner in publishing, and the right partner for you is going to be absolutely open to coming up with a plan with you in the event of them leaving the industry or leaving the agency. If they're not willing to do that, then that's a huge red flag that maybe that is not the right agent for you. I hope this video helped you contextualize some of the information you might be seeing about New Leaf and it dropping its authors online, and helped you understand more about what a healthy author and agent relationship should be like. Let me know in the comments if you heard about the New Leaf situation, and if you're an author, how did it make you feel? Whether you are currently querying or if you have an agent. I'd love to hear your reactions to it because it really was a huge shakeup in the industry. If you are in the position of querying and trying to figure out if an agent is reputable or not, I recommend checking out my video on how to vet literary agents and ensure they're legit. I give you some tactical steps to take there. And as always, if you found this video interesting or helpful, please hit that thumbs up button. It means a lot to me. Hit that subscribe button to join this amazing community of authors. And don't forget your free story self-assessment worksheet and my newsletter in the description below. Thanks so much for watching and happy writing.